Seemed to think that that I was nuts for going there. You know, there's a terrorist behind every tree, you know, is the perception.
Particularly now when we're painting with broad brushstrokes the war on terror, and the danger is that it paints everyone from a particular region as a terrorist, and it's not true.
I had people come up to me and said before, we didn't particularly care too much for Americans.
The beard, the turban, and a shalwar kameez are probably the three most foreign things to Americans.
The only things you see about countries are protests or bombings or conflict. It gives a distorted view of the reality that happens every day.
Anyone, if you say you're going to Pakistan, because they're influenced by the news and the media, I'm sure there's a little thought in the back, you know, she's going to be the next hostage or something like that, you know.
The media tells a story, and often it is a small snapshot that is a bad picture, a bad news, something bad, something negative. That's usually what makes it into the news.
Am I going to be in danger? All those moments were going through my mind.
And I had a conversation with my nephew about this, and it was so alarming to me when he says, I don't know if I can go with you, Auntie, because it's better if I go after I join the military, because then I'll have my gun. I'm like, where does that idea come from?
I wasn't this guy who, you know, wanted to go out there and kill everyone and hated Muslims and, you know, didn't care about this region. I really cared. I wanted to do something good. And
it's a challenge to get out of the American bubble and understand what's happening in the world. The images that we receive on the news tend to be the bad things that happen around the world.
Most people here had never seen an American. They had heard stories of Afghanistan and Iraq, and of large helicopters that rained only fire and missiles.
The Americans have also perception about the Muslims that the Muslims are terrorists, but actually they are not.
उस इलाके में अमेरिका को सब लोग बुरा समझते थे। अगर बुरा भी समझते थे तो उसके कोई वजूहात थे।
इतना ख्याल नहीं था कि अमेरिका मुल्क जो है वो हमारी इतनी मदद कर सकता है, हमारे साथ हेल्प कर सकता है, कि हम लोग का ख्याल कर रहा है। ऐसा नहीं था, उन लोग के माइंड में ये चीज़ें नहीं थी।
लोगों के ख्यालात थे, हम भी लोग भी सोचते थे कि अमेरिका ने पहले भी इराक में उसने बमबारी की है, बम बरसाएं।
When the American chopper, they saw the American chopper like Chinook, they were moving here almost every day, like 20 times a day. So they thought that here you go, here the Americans are, they start gonna bombing us.
कि दाढ़ी वाले सबको तालिबान बोलते हैं, बमबार्ड करते थे, इसके ऊपर लोग बहुत हो गए थे।
मीडिया तो सब कुछ जो बताता है उसके लिए मैं खुद एक पढ़ा लिखा बंदा हूँ, और मैं जब तक अमेरिकन के साथ मिला नहीं था या कुछ, तो मेरे जहन में भी एक यही कंसेप्ट बना हुआ था कि अमेरिकन जो है ना वो एक मतलब दूसरे लोगों को, दूसरे मुल्कों को दबाते हैं और सुपर पावर होने का फ़ायदा उठाते हैं।
I was talking to my friends there, and they are educated, but they were thinking that okay, now the Americans are here, they are going to live here forever.
हम अमेरिका के मुखालिफ नहीं हैं, हम तो अमेरिका का जो मौजूदा वो निज़ाम जो चल रहा है, हम तो उसके मुखालिफ हैं।
The injuries were dreadful. Broken limbs, crushed skulls, compound fractures, and internal bleeding. The doctors worked frantically with limited medications and only the most basic tools, sometimes treating patients under the open sky. U.S. Army Chinooks dropped in every few minutes, bringing aid and taking out the injured. In the end, it was the volunteers and their compassion that made it possible for the survivors to begin their lives again.
It would be more painful to stay sitting on the couch watching people suffer, knowing I had the ability to do something about it.
What is going to be the catalyst that makes them get back to work or back to back to their normal life? What's going to provide normalcy?
I originally only came to be there for 10 days.
We thought that the best move for them was to start rebuilding their homes out of the rubble of their home rather than wait for a tent.
The Rural Health Center in Chikara is going to be rebuilt anywhere from a year to a year and a half is the last estimate that I was given. And through that time, the people there, over 100,000 people in those 4 union councils, would not have access to local and nearby basic health care.
We would try to take care of these people who were isolated from Bog, which was about 5 hours by foot away.
There simply wasn't anybody in those 4 union councils that were going to stay long enough for the new hospital to be built.
We started doing this, you know, we would pretty much be day laborers, and we would help break apart homes and explain that use the material as best you can just to get you off the ground for the snow and something permanent so that it won't be crushed under the snow load, and it was working really well.
There's people who have lost limbs or had injuries in the earthquake that need some kind of long-term aftercare rehabilitation, but there's also, you know, heart attacks and gynecological issues and pediatrics and acute respiratory infection.
We started this process and it just took off. It was nicknamed Winter Race, and every IFRC, ICRC, IOM, Save the Children, everyone adopted it. So we taught these classes in Islamabad for about 4 days on how to go into the field with a small team, identify the people who need the housing the most, help them rebuild the housing, not just distribute, because we found out the hard way that if you show up somewhere and you distribute, the people who end up with the product are the people who need it the least.
We're getting support from UNICEF and World Health Organization, so we're working directly in partnership with a lot of larger UN-sponsored agencies as well.
The village of Ratnoi was actually surrounded by 17 villages, and because that was the helicopter pad, it became the hub, so everybody was going there. So we decided a BHU, which is a basic health unit, would be really effective in that spot. You could fly in supplies, fly in doctors. It was a good point as a center.
We have a gynecologist, we have general physicians, we have psychiatrists and psychologists, we have volunteers and medical students and doctors, internists come in from the States, and we have local staff there as well that worked with me all through the acute phase.
When Todd Shea heard about the destruction caused by the earthquake, he took the first available flight to Pakistan to join the rescue and relief operations, leaving his home and family behind.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Setting up a medical facility here, he provides free health care and medicines to anyone and everyone in the region.
Hello. How are you? A lot of children up here in the Chikar area that without CDRS they would not have any kind of proper medical care for the minor and major problems that children have. Up here there's scabies, there's diarrhea, there's a lot of problems that can lead to very serious infections that can be life-threatening.
He worked at Ground Zero when the Twin Towers fell and helped save lives during the tsunami in Sri Lanka and Hurricane Katrina.
They're doing better? They're going to be okay? Well, we have a partner NGO who gives limbs to people that, they're doing it for the earthquake victims, but also for anyone who needs fell in love with the children there. I fell in love with the people. I found them to be very decent and hardworking and stoic and strong people in the face of this.